Hey everyone, this is Matthew Kent. Welcome to Theology on the Ground, daily thought for my quiet time. So the first couple days of this year, I've been doing these videos going over what I've been reading in Genesis. But of course, I'm going over the Robert Murray M'Cheyne reading plan. So it's 4 places in the scriptures every day, 1 chapter from each of those places. So 4 chapters a day, get through the Bible in a year. And today I thought I'd go over just a little tidbit of what I read in Acts chapter 5 and talk about what I think the relationship is between being a follower of Christ and being a citizen of a nation state, and so, how Christians should relate to government. And I think this is it's a little bit of a nuanced question. I don't think there's a fully black and white answer in the Bible. I think that the principles are pretty clearly set forward. So on the one hand, you might think of passages such as in 1 Peter or Romans 13, right? So you have Peter writing, and then you also have Paul writing, and basically telling us the same message that, hey, we should submit to governing authorities. And when you think about their context, so for me, I live in the United States of America, a country largely founded on Christian principles. A great number of people who have lived here over the years have identified as Christian. Many of them probably actually really were Christian, although for sure there were some that weren't, that were still identifying as Christian because there were sort of cultural benefits to it. And the government has been very friendly toward Christianity. Not every policy that has ever been here has been glorifying to God, but overall the government has been very friendly to Christianity. And so these guys, Peter and Paul, were living in a time where the government was hostile to Christianity. You had a lot of their writing happened during the reign of Nero. Really, really, really hated Christians. And so there's a lot of persecution and really a lot of execution. Not only are you going to get persecuted in general, because that can mean a lot of things, leading up to, but not necessarily including death. But then also some persecution obviously can include actually dying, and that's sort of like the highest level of persecution you can face. And that was what they were up against. And they said, hey, submit to your government. So in one sense, you could look at that and you could say, well, there you go, case closed. Christians should always submit to their government in everything. Yes, and certainly in America, I have it very good, and most people in most parts of the world, although not everybody has it as well as America has, we've got it pretty good in the modern world, and of course there's still, I understand, pockets of intense persecution, but by and large, the world is as friendly toward Christianity as it's ever been. And so you say, well, okay, should we just obey the government at all times? And I think the answer is no. We should always be striving to be humble and to obey the government, but there are times in which civil disobedience is called for. And I don't think it's black and white, but I think the guiding light, the principle, is in the Bible. And so from Acts chapter 5, and so Peter and John and some of the disciples have already been arrested by the Jewish council, the Sanhedrin, for preaching Jesus. God, sort of miraculously got them out of jail, and now here they are. They're getting taken in again, and that's where we pick it up in Acts chapter 5, verse 27. And when they had brought them, they set them, the disciples, Peter and John, before the council, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leaders. And the high priest questioned them, saying, "We strictly charged you not to teach in this name, yet here you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and have intended to bring this man's blood upon us." But Peter and the apostles answered, "We must obey God rather than men." And he goes on to he preaches a little bit and talks about the resurrection and all of that. And so the principle here that's clearly laid out is, hey, where we feel clearly that God has instructed us, if you say something that prohibits us from doing what God wants us to do, and in this case it's the Great Commission, spreading the gospel, preaching the good news to all creation. So if you tell us not to do what God has told us to do, we're going to follow God, not you. And so any area where, after much study of the scriptures, careful reflection, prayer, all that, you feel like the government is prohibiting you from doing something that Christ calls you to do, or commanding you to do something that Christ prohibits, you've got to draw the line, and you've got to practice civil disobedience. And of course, as a Christian, it's not just that anything goes when it comes to civil disobedience. Obviously, it should be peaceful. These kind of things, there's a way to do it well, but you still got to do it. And so I think that's the line. And of course, why I say it's still somewhat of a gray area is because we're not always going to agree about where exactly the line is. Has the government crossed the line? Have they really asked us to do something that's going to cause us to disobey Christ? And we won't always get a clear answer to that question, but we should always be looking to the scriptures, seeking to find those answers where we can, and obeying the government wherever we can. And then on the other side, practicing civil disobedience whenever we have to. So those are my thoughts on that particular and very sensitive issue. Hopefully that was useful to you. And Lord willing, I will see you guys again tomorrow. Thanks for watching.